Welcome to What Have You, featuring Rachel Jankovic and Rebecca Merkel. This audio is brought to you by Canon Press. Before we get started, I wanted to make sure you knew that a featured guest of What Have You, Nancy Wilson, has a new podcast called Femina. Every Friday, Nancy shares a quick, Bible-saturated devotional that covers all matters of the Christian life. You can find the Femina podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I'm Becca Merkel.
Yep, here we are.
That might be it.
It's hot. It's August. The sky is white.
My word. And
The fields are crunchy looking.
Can I just tell you, in keeping with my rhythms of my life, I just flat stopped watering my garden or caring about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So
it's
now-
a good time of year to let it
it's
go.
It's like 100 degrees out, and I just
time,
stopped.
It's the time when gardens thrive with neglect.
It's just, I haven't even walked out there. It's so bad. And you know what? I feel like I need to talk about that a little bit because, you know, we just did have a lot of people pass through the town. And I know some of you walked past my house because I was told, oh, we walked past your house. And I'm just going to say, you guys, I'm sorry. I don't even know what's happening in that garden because I've not gone and looked. It's wilting away in sadness and sorrow.
You know what's happening in my life right now? Is that I am discovering what it's like to have 7 teenagers in the house, which I have 7 teenagers in the house right now because I have 2 nephews and a niece living with us for this last week before school starts because they have football practice and they have a lot going on. And so I have a house full of teenagers, and I think, if anything, is more designed to let you know that your grocery routine is not what it should be. That's the one. That's the one that will draw your attention to how much a cheese stick won't get us through.
No,
Like, you're like, wait, I need to take this more seriously. And then last night I ran to Walmart. So I'm like, well, I'll quickly grab 6 gallons of milk because I can put some in the fridge in the basement. It's like, that's great. And I'll get a bunch of extra eggs because we need that. That's great. But then the cart's full. So you're like, well, loaded up on those 2 things. But what am I going to do about the rest of it? Like, oh, Becca.
What?
Okay, I have to give you this tip right now.
Okay.
Because I won't remember it when the tip comes. Yeah, but I had okay, I might be the only human in the world that is as troubled by this as I am. And I'm just sorry if none of you have been trying to run these analytics in your own life, so you just getting a weird look into my mind. But I shop at Winco, and at Winco, things are not always laid out the way they should be in the shopping order because you come in, you're in the produce. So you get the produce, and then you maybe hit the, snack aisle on your way past the produce, and then you're in the deli, and then you do the meat, and you might loop back around. But the really where the problem comes in is that the produce is on the bottom, and then you get to heavy stuff later.
Yeah, the milk.
And then you're not sure. Okay, but then, so you've put it in your cart in some way that you're always trying to not put the drippy pork on top of the apples or whatever. You're trying to order that up. Well, then when you go, you unload it onto the grocery thing.
With the bread as the final one, that one is the thing that annoys me. It's not, I always get the bread last because it's right by the check stand. And
but
so
then
it
it's
goes
first on the belt. Yeah.
Yes.
But then this is the problem. I'm always trying to think of what is the strategy because I know that there has to be one where you could organize the things in your cart where they could go from your cart to the belt to the bags to the back of your car in the right order.
Yes.
Because no matter what you do, it's the wrong order because I go like, oh, I'm going to get ice bags. So I'm like, oh, I'll put the ice in the bottom of the cart.
Yeah, it's like,
but then you're like, no, because then they're last in the car.
Yeah.
And then if they're last in the car, then you're messing everything up again. So it's been a real trial for many years before. It actually reminds me of that paper.
I'm kind of all breathless to find out what it is.
Yeah, I didn't really solve it too bad. But the paper the little
my
puzzle
hopes
that
up.
Granddad gave us when we were little that you can't try to go through every line once and none twice or whatever.
Yeah.
It's one of those sorts of riddles. I think
it
I
is.
do it every time I go to the store. But this last time, I had a breakthrough. I had 2 carts just out of control full of groceries. And so...
You pushing them both yourself?
Yeah, push and a pull.
Push and pull.
Yeah.
All right.
I like to... I'm really into social distancing, so at the grocery store, I try to have a cart on every side of
Have a real
myself.
buffer.
Just kind of twirling around in the big,
Yeah.
No, so I figured out
Okay.
breakthrough news.
Yeah.
I used paper bags to pack the groceries.
Okay.
This is innovation at
All
its
right.
finest.
Okay.
You know, boxes of things like LaCroix in the bottom.
Yeah.
Paper bags, because I hate having the produce smushed. And trying to do all that. So the lighter weight things on the top of the paper bags, whatever.
Okay.
And then I came back with the plastic bags, like chicken breast in a plastic bag, and slip them in the side of the cart down beside all of your nice clean lines of your so there were no random heavy things having to get put on top because there was no other hope for us at the end.
Now that you bring this up,
I was thinking, why did I
always
never think of using 2 bags?
I always use plastic just sort of out of habit. But now that you say this, I just got back from Winco this afternoon, and every time, doesn't matter how I do it, I pile all of this huge heap of groceries in the back of the cart, and then I open the bag hatch,
They fall out.
and there's inevitably a bag full of, today it happened to be little bottled drinks. that
Becca
all
has.
fell out.
I'll have you all know that at least twice,
at
for
least twice.
sure, 2
I was gonna
times.
say this.
I have actually been on the horn with Becca, talking to her on the phone when she has ginger ale roll out the back of her car and explode in the street, and begin hosing ginger ale off around things. So
one of them,
it's
it
actually a
powered
real
itself.
hobby. I've been there twice for
It
it.
powered itself down the road by
Do you remember I think it was Dean and Antonia that told us about the time that they were going on it. They were having a date night, and they were walking in Pullman together down Main Street, and some car was parallel parking, and like right beside them as they're walking by, and backed onto a thing of motor oil when it hosed them down. Like it just blew the top off the motor oil and hosed them through no fault of the drivers at all. Like nobody ever intended to squirt motor oil all over a couple on a date. It's just the Lord nominated you for that good time today. Anyway, sorry. So you were...
Anyway, so I'm just saying that actually I think that your paper bag motif could solve some of my collapsing bottles problem.
Well, I found the one problem, and I'll tell you the reason.
I've even considered
the reason
bins,
this
Rachel.
tip is not. Yeah, the reason this tip is not as good of a tip as you may have wished it to be is the fact that they had to shut down the whole grocery lane when I came through it, and tell the lady behind me that she better go elsewhere because I was going to take too long because I clogged up all the
everything.
sides. Yeah. But then once they'd done that, I really felt like this is my big chance to see if I can make this make more sense. And it did make pretty good sense because if you treat those paper bags like you're packing them strategically full, like using your cracker boxes wisely while you're doing this, then they actually do transfer in a pretty orderly way to that car. Although you still would be left with the ice and the boxes of LaCroix to throw on top of stuff, but I managed to not do that this time.
My tip is I always, when I'm loading it off the belt, I always set all the milk up in the little kid section.
Too,
But that's really my only... I just get annoyed that the bread always...
But I don't think it helps. I put
is
watermelons
out of order.
up there, and I put the...
No, it doesn't matter. It's
milk
like-
is heavy enough, nothing will hurt your carton of milk if you put a thing on it. top of it.
No, but it's just so that I don't end up having to put them... That way I can get it out of the car, into the car first, rather than having it be buried in the bottom and having to set it on your cilantro. But I kind of really wish we could get back in touch with the olden days of the butcher would bring you your meat and your milkman would come to the door, you know? Like, that would be a service.
Becca yearns for the olden days.
Service I could get behind.
I don't know of many people who don't yearn for a little earlier than nowadays. I think everyone's like, maybe.
Even if we could get back to the good old 2018.
Yes, when we thought things were bad.
Back when, I just feel like every party I'm planning lately, I think it's maybe a 30% success rate in terms of, like, you give it the invitation and then you're like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't happen.
Don't count your chickens, guys.
Yeah.
That's what you should do. Just throw a don't count your chickens party and be like, don't assume this is happening, but please do receive our thoughts of hospitality as though we were going to be having you over. You know, just know that we thought about having done it. And we got a handwritten letter today in the mail from someone that was like, dear friend. And we're like, what is this about? Like, turns out that in these troubled times, JWs are resorting to snail mail. It's a handwritten JW outreach message. So I think I got a pen pal today. It's like, you mail me some, I'll mail you some. I have a Bible reading challenge planned for you. I have
hilarious.
one.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
So, now that we've really gone to the...
Don't worry, we've solved all your grocery packing problems.
Depths of grocery bagging with no real actual...
No,
The tip is try paper bags. Maybe that'll help.
The tip for me was using mixed media. I think I've used paper bags before, but I've only used a paper bag, like, I pick one or the other. I've never tried this intramural sport with the bags.
Yeah, with both.
And so when I realized, what if I built the building blocks of a grocery run with paper bags and the weird squicky things went in plastic bags in the sides?
I could see it.
Yeah, I had a really, I got a glimmer of something that might be workable in the future. I got a lead on an option.
Man. You know what I need a lead on is... like some fun packed lunch ideas for high school hungry people. Because...
do you really? Haven't we talked about this out here before?
I don't know.
I think people might be like, what's wrong with you people? Because in the 1 year we don't need lunch packing ideas.
True. You're right.
We're on it with the lunch packing ideas.
Well,
I make Stromboli, a big thing of you remember that recipe, the Colorado calzone recipe?
yeah, I never liked it because the dough in the middle wouldn't cook.
I know what you mean, except for I don't struggle with that because I don't spiral it into the middle. I just...
What do you do?
I just wrap it.
Once?
Pretty much.
So you make a log?
I've actually made it more like a...
kind of like a cheese straw of dough with...
No, I've actually
stuff
done
inside?
it. I've actually done it like a log, and then I stretch it out further and twist it back on itself. It ends up being
what that means.
The slices look more like a figure 8 of sausage on the inside of them.
Okay, well, you'll have to explain this.
But it hasn't ended up with dough blobs, if that's the thing that you were concerned about.
Well, because this Colorado calzone idea was like a savory cinnamon roll full of a lot of meat. Was kind of how it came off.
It's really known as a Stromboli.
Oh no. It's not even
That's like saying Tortillas are basically a blander donut that's rolled out flat, not fried. What, Mo?
Oh no!
I'm hungry.
You're hungry? Did you eat one of the chocolate protein muffins?
Yeah.
You are? You want cheese stick?
No.
Oh, see, I told you cheese sticks wouldn't get it. How about
Oh
grilled?
man! Oh,
Blue ones?
Go look in the drawer.
I like that while you are in the midst of having somebody tap in from the window to ask for food, I'm getting texts.
What am I going to eat right now? Is that the text?
It was to the family chat. Hey, does anybody want to bring me some food? Anyway. Oh, man. Well, I'm just got real tickled about that.
What I was going to say about Stromboli is that it's like mozzarella and sausage
You're the one
and stuff.
that brought up the Colorado calzone. I was merely trying to, help out with footnotes.
Yeah, well, it's not like a cinnamon roll. But
Yes, it is. The Colorado calzone is. That was the original problem that I had with that recipe.
okay, so moving on from this crisis of understanding, I slice it and freeze it in bags.
Doesn't the filling fall out of your figure
No,
eight?
it doesn't. I have more
Interesting.
talent than you in
Apparently.
making this.
Apparently.
But then the kids can either grab one and throw it in their bag and it thaws by lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
Or people can microwave it when they happen to be a desperately hangry personnel.
Well,
It doesn't make those King
The
Arthur
thing
flour. And I'll tell you, I'm discouraged about King Arthur flour right now.
I'm discouraged about everybody right now.
I am, yeah, but like the people that I follow, because I really enjoy good recipes and baked goods, and I've always liked their flour. But why did they have to become the big boss nation about all kinds of things that are not their purview? And then making
man.
their baking feed unbearable with the self-righteousness. Then they changed their logo.
No.
Yeah, they changed their logo, and now they're the King Arthur Baking Company. And they're all like, oh, this has been in the works for a long time. And this is the thing, is that I actually like their new logo is fine. It's not like there's something evil about the new logo. But they have put on such an ugly persona of late that their new logo feels forever, like it feels
It's
sinister.
probably compromised.
Like, if you've been a successful baking company since 1776, isn't your logo working for you? Like,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
question. Did you really need...
Not really. I think anything
you
that
really-
dates from 1776 we're trying to throw in the river.
Yeah, that's the
As
problem.
fast as
Yeah,
possible.
I just wasn't super pleased with them about that. And I unfollowed them because
Yeah.
I still will search their recipes for things that I wanted, but I'm not looking for little self-righteous
No. Well,
hot
I'll tell you
tips
what
from...
got me put out was I found a recipe today when I was making my menu. I was like, oh, that looks good. I'll try that. I don't even know what it was. It was something, I don't know. It looked interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Timeout.
Blue ones, can I have some part, Rudy?
Sure. Yes.
Nailed it. Anyway, don't know what I was talking about.
Yeah, you do. You were planning your menu.
Oh, yeah. And you know how you find a recipe, you click through, you look at it, you're not paying attention to the life story of the person who's giving you the recipe.
Well, because if anything has made us learn these skills of not really looking at what you're reading, it's
Never.
recipe blogs.
Never.
Yeah.
And
You're
and-
scrolling to find the ingredient list.
yeah, and I'll tell you what else. I have, no, that's boring. It doesn't matter. My computer's being a bit dodgy, so it will seize up if a website has too many flashing components. It will just
right.
spritz out. And so then I have to open up like Chrome, which I don't like at all, and then I can use
Okay.
that. So anyway, I do a lot of like, I'll just cut and paste the address over in Chrome, and then I can see if it looks good. So I do that. I'm like, all right, I make my list. I kind of throw everything on the old grocery list and everything, and then suddenly I'm assaulted by this video I've been ignoring in the upper corner. I was just looking at the recipe, and it's just this homosexual couple making out, and I'm like, what? Stop it. And then I start looking, and there's another, what appears to be a very suspicious-y transgender kind of something. And then I noticed that the title of the website is something to do with cooking in the closet. And I was like, am I really here? Like, am I having
a mistake?
A really devious
Did I
time?
make a mistake with where I went on the internet?
And the thing is, maybe the closet has nothing to do with that closet, but why all the ads? Like,
It's
I don't
weird.
know. I just was really put out.
Well,
And you know
only
what?
today I went to look at. Just tell me how to cook a dry garbanzo in the Instant Pot. Like,
Okay.
here's what I need you to tell me. 2 cups dry garbanzos, 4 cups water.
Yeah.
Put it on
Full
high
stop.
pressure for 40 minutes. Farewell. That's the information.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to know. Instead, I'm trolling through page upon page of someone. Like, I think the sentence started out, let me tell you why I like dried beans. And I'm like, no, let you not tell me why you like dried beans. I think dried beans speak for themselves. They've been known for a long time as a certain kind of commodity, and I don't think that they're innovating. I mean,
No.
it's like they make the best paper plate art.
I feel like while we're on the let's air the grievance time, here's what really peeves me. Somebody threw out one of these very kind of right-wingy news venues that had a story about something atrocious that's happening. I don't remember what. It was something, people protesting or burning down Portland or I don't know what. And whatever it was, I was like, oh, interesting. And I clicked on it, and it's clearly a right-wing news media situation.
Yeah.
So
I'm
tell
with
me
ya.
why it is grotesque ads. And I feel like
if it's licentious, it's totally like the old time. Well, they probably still happen. I just never see it. Car magazines.
Well, no, that's the thing. Is it's like, does anybody pay attention anymore to consistency of thought? No, clearly
because
no.
the conservatives are like, we're all about going back to the great America that brought us Hooters. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
that was
and you're like,
peak America right
have
there.
we not learned anything, conservatives? Because it's just like
there's quite a lot of that.
a lot of
shenanigans.
raunchy ideas that you could click through to see things you shouldn't. But it was like, why would that be on the Washington? Why are they all named Washington something? It's like Washington
I think
Examiner
it
or
might be
Washington
because of
Post or
Washington, D.C.
Maybe, but
It
I
might be
feel like
that might be why.
But you
sort of
can't
that
keep track of them all.
national headquarters vibe.
No, but it's like that you can't keep up with which one it is or anything. But I just feel like there's a lot of people that need to revisit their
Really,
first
the
assumptions.
most consistent news source I find is the Babylon Bee right now. Consistently
Prophetic.
on the money from the Babylon Bee.
Really, I know.
Yeah.
I know. There's a lot of things going forth that only the Babylon Bee could have guessed were coming.
I have I'll pass on the random insight from my husband about today's Bible reading.
Okay.
Did you do it yet?
I did.
Hebrews 1 through 4.
I like that you're putting me on the spot like that, but yes, I have done it.
So relieved, because if you hadn't read your 4 chapters yet today, I was going to be like, guys, this
Kick
is so
me out of the
awkward. We have
car.
to have an intervention
Yeah,
with
we're gonna
Becca
have to
right
talk
now.
about it.
No, but the thing that I thought was so great that Luke pointed out when so I think it's in chapter 4, isn't it? The part about he was in all ways tempted like
Yeah,
us. Like
okay.
we have a great high priest who was
Yeah.
tempted like
In
us,
all
yet
ways as
without
we are,
sin.
yeah.
Yet without sin. And so, because we have him as a high priest, we can come boldly before his throne, like knowing that he will give us grace and mercy. And,
Right.
And,
Right.
and it's interesting because we so often think of the things that Jesus was tempted in. We think Jesus, he was like us, so he was tempted to mouth off at someone, and he didn't. Or he must have been tempted like us to, like we tend to think of Christ being tempted, and he was tempted like us. I mean, that's the point of the passage, but what I'm trying to say is we tend to think of Christ as being better than us at abstaining from sin.
Yes.
But what he actually was better than us at obeying and following the Lord's will, like doing the thing. It's not just abstaining from what you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
It was Christ was better than we are. Yeah. And he was tempted like us to not do the thing that was hard. Well, do you know what I mean by that though? Like the one temptation that well, not the one, I guess, because there is actually the temptation in the wilderness, but the one real intense trial that we can see into what Christ was suffering is the crucifixion in that time when he was, because in that time where he's praying, where he's like, if there's any other way, like, I don't want to do this, that, where he's wrestling in that way with it, and yet he goes and obeys. He goes and does it. And we tend to think of it like Jesus must know what it's like to want to blow a raspberry at someone, but to not do it because whatever. It's like, except for the one thing that we've been given all this insight into is how he knew how to obey when he did not want to. That the temptation was to an absence of action.
Well, and often I think we think of holiness as a sort of absence of action.
Which is part of the reason you love that in the Fairy Queen, that Belphoebe is chastity, right? But it's a female knight. It's not, chastity is not it's militant. It's not a virtue that just refrains. It's a positive virtue. Right. It's something,
you can't just be an absence of everything and have that turn out to be righteousness.
Right. No, because it's just a vacuum. It's not the presence of doing what God told you to do. And actually, I have thought that the one place in Scripture that I think we can see Jesus is just downright peeved when someone is Herod.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because
I think what I'm trying to say is clearly not that I think Jesus was in sin about Herod, but I'm saying that he had John the Baptist beheaded, and then when he has him come dress, and they dress him up and want him to like do tricks, and it's the one where he says nothing, but somewhere else he calls Herod that fox. Like he clearly, Herod is an enemy in a big way. And he doesn't say anything at all to him. And you think that's interesting because like that silence in the face of Herod.
Well, Ben was preaching yesterday on the cleansing of the temple in John, so there's another instance where Christ was clearly angry at the situation. But
in that situation he was acting, and in the situation with Herod, he was not saying that. What I meant is, what I was trying to say is that is the one situation where I could see Jesus maybe being obedient through not doing what he probably would have thought in his heart for a moment. What he could have done. That's what I think of.
What I was going to say, though, is I think that it's actually really interesting. I did not know this till he started his series on John, but the first half of John is a series of 7 signs. And then the second half of John is just the final week of his life. So commentators call the first half of John the Book of Signs.
Oh.
And so, and it's 7 miracles that are like, this was his first sign. So at the wedding at Cana it says this was his first sign, and then whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Well, at the cleansing of the temple, he does this, he cleanses it, and then the Jews ask him for a sign. And he won't give it to him. He basically says, destroy this temple and I'll raise it again in 3 days. And then you move on, and then there's another one. So he was just saying, clearly Jesus is giving signs all over the place, because right after that it says, and many were converted because of the signs that he was doing. So he was doing lots of signs, but as soon as the people demand one, he doesn't give it to them. And it's because Ben was sort of unpacking that as saying that, like, when you say, like atheists will say, if only God would show himself to me, then I would believe. You're basically saying, I'm the judge and the jury, and he can come in and I will weigh the evidence.
Anytime he wants to come to my courtroom, I'll allow him.
About that.
Yeah.
And when it's done like that, Jesus just doesn't.
Yeah.
He just leaves them all with that. And says something cryptic and walks off. But when he's doing signs elsewhere and people are all believing, it's because, like at that moment, Christ is already doing a work in them, and they're not sitting in judgment over it. It's more like so I think that's interesting with the Herod parallel.
Yes, that's a moment where he was not going to entertain Herod. Part of the reason I think that's interesting is that Herod wanting Jesus to do party tricks for him. Right. But John the Baptist was beheaded because of Herod's party tricks. Because he was too intrigued by someo's dancing that he promised too much. And he didn't even want to execute him, but he had to. And I think that's just, I can't imagine how much, if you imagine your dearest, your cousin and your dear, like someone who's so, John the Baptist meant a lot to Jesus. And you think, to have Herod be like, just because we were having a good time.
I'm just having a thought right now, though.
Okay. What is it, Beck?
So, Herod beheads John the Baptist, and we are told he was sort of like, oh, snap, but I promise, so I kind of have to, like, I'm kind of in a pickle, gonna have to do it anyway.
I'm up against it now. They all saw me promise. When you think
about, like, the villains of the New Testament, Herod's right up there. He's right up in the top tier.
It's even documented about the worms, because that matters.
Then you also have Pontius Pilate clearly doesn't want to do it either. And he is trying his best to distance himself.
He's trying to get the Jews to not do it.
What it was that he was about to say okay to. And he washes his hands and he makes that sign. And he sort of does all the gesturing to say, I'm not really on board with this, and yet he does it anyways. And he's another one where right there in the Apostles' Creed that for thousands of years everyone's been saying.
Pontius Pilate.
Crucified under Pontius Pilate.
Do you know something that...
I was just going to say that, like, in this particular moment, how many people are going along with things that they don't agree with
and feel like they can't do anything about it.
Well, my hands are a little bit tied right now, like
super awkward,
and it's awkward. And with both Herod and with Pontius Pilate, you can actually feel for them
that it was awkward,
of the situation.
For sure.
And yet, that in no way makes us feel like
didn't make them a hero.
They were the good person.
No, it did not excuse things.
And I just feel like that's interesting because so many people are doing things right now. Like, are there any cops?
My hands are sort of tied. I still better call them on the neighbors.
Are there any Christian cops who are employed in shutting down churches around the country right now who are like,
sure they are.
I really don't want to, but my hands are kind of tied because,
complicated.
There are probably a lot of people doing things that they should be very ashamed of.
They know better than they should.
They know better. They don't want to, and yet they're going along with it just because.
Something else that occurred to me recently. That I don't know why I'd never thought of it. I mean, it's not exactly innovative. But you know how the Paul with his thorn in the flesh that he could not be done with. And we think it was probably his eyesight.
Yeah.
Because he didn't recognize the high priest when he was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know he was the high priest. And the high priest would have been very recognizable in his garb. And he also says, see how I'm writing with such big letters. And then there's his whole, his salvation, that moment where that he's blinded, on the Damascus Road. And somebody else recently pointed out maybe that's why he was holding the cloaks for people who were stoning Stephen, because he had all the...
Interesting.
Why was he just holding their cloaks is odd, because he was an enthusiast for what was happening.
I always felt like he was sort of an understudy at that point.
But he doesn't talk about when he was an understudy. He talks about how he was really persecuting the church. But the thing that occurred to me, and I don't know why, is that he himself did so much healing. And that what an interesting way for God to make it so clear that it was God's gift through him.
Yeah.
And it was not his own power to heal. Because it never occurred to me how weird that would be to be able to, like, heal people. To actually be there for little resurrections,
well,
you know?
There's the old physician, heal thyself is kind of...
Yeah. But my point here is that, can you even imagine what a close, like, when he talks about how he had pleaded with the Lord, can you imagine what a, like, how a, I think what I'm trying to say is what a tight walk with the Lord that was.
Yeah.
In the sense of being able, while you suffered with something, to heal other people is a really interesting thing. And I think I was thinking about that because of how much sometimes people take Paul as being really kind of arrogant. Mm-hmm. Like, because he's so strong and confident in so many ways. And I think thinking about this just gave me that, like, a weird glimpse into how strangely vulnerable he was to the Lord, if that makes sense. Like, how...
Right.
Anyways, I don't think Paul's arrogant at all. My point is how closely he must have been walking with the Lord on that, on those things. That it wasn't like Paul just had it all and could go out and just clear, you know, heal people and get whatever he wanted and do. You know, like, he was really suffering and struggling while having the power to heal other people.
Speaking of that, Judah showed me a little ad for a Joel Osteen portable speaker.
Ooh, that'll fix us up.
It's a small, kind of almost pocket-sized speaker that's preloaded with many of Joel Osteen's encouraging words. So if you're feeling down, you can just push that button, and Joel, he's there with you. with sort of like, you're enough. Magnificence is coming your way.
For $19.99, you can get the real pack of encouragement.
So speaking of people who are, you know, ministering,
you
from
could tell
a place of having it all together.
I think Paul is a great example of what Dad has always said, that it's amazing how a pastor can get up in front and talk for 30 minutes about how he was tired and feeling testy with people, and so he just got bothered and he said whatever, and everybody can be like, wow, he's so humble. He said, but if someone gets up and says, the Lord says you can't, you know, like a pretty much a straight Bible quote, everyone's like, you so arrogant.
A little bit bossy.
And it's like, really? It's talking about myself and the nuances of my attitudes.
Like, you need to show us that you're vulnerable.
Yeah, like, true humility is a long talk about everything about me, but and true arrogance is to quote the Lord.
Really done a number on our dictionary assumptions, because bravery
is
nobility,
not it. Yeah.
We don't even say the word nobility.
Up.
We just took out of the book. We don't have that.
No such nonsense in these parts.
No, piety, that's gone. But what we do have is bravery and, you know, courage and, I don't know, all of these virtues,
the stuff
that
we made up,
turned inside out completely.
Isn't that,
you know?
Yeah. Such a bummer. Well, I'm realizing that I'm really going to have to get out of here now, because I have to take people to football, and before I take people to football, I have to finish making them a Cuban sandwich.
Oh, that's a good
idea.
And
that time is ticking away.
That's interesting, because I'm going to be feeding after football, because Judah doesn't like to go to football on a full stomach. So,
I think we've been feeding before and after. I don't know. It might be a poor choice, but it might be the only choice I have right now.
I'm doing the post-rugby, post-football foods today.
But Luke has a board meeting, so really nothing makes sense in my life. Like, really...
no.
Really, the kids figured out I had from 2 to 6 today. There was nobody had to be at anything, but that was it. But really, that's nice. 2:30 to 5:30 and 2. Whatever. The point is, this is a real time to quote old Elizabeth Bootser. It's just
Okay.
Pray for me. I'm going to
I'll
the
be
kitchen.
in the kitchen.
I'm going to the kitchen
Yeah.
now. It was
Well-
like if all these people could feed themselves, I would have time to write you letters. But since they don't, pray for me. I'm going to the kitchen. That's pretty much it.
You already gave us a tip, so we're sorted out with that. We've changed
Yeah,
our life.
Get yourselves all warmed up to start inviting all your people, everyone you know, to join you in the Bible reading challenge starting September 7th, which is just a 1-week break when we finish
Right.
Same Page Summer. We'll be starting To the Word 2020. And if 2020 needed anything more than people to be to the Word in it, I don't know.
It's true. We got to get that done.
That's something that has to happen this year. Put it on
Well-
your must-do calendar.
Yeah.
All right, until next time, bye-bye. But we're still on the line. Can't remember my password. Okay, try again. Goodbye!
Bye.